welcome back to a brand new episode. So, oh, here he comes. He knows his cue. Hi. Hi, Psycho. Oh, someone just came in from outside. Huh? Hi, crazy boy. So, for today's video, we are talking about Woman in the Yard. Now, this movie did come out this year, and I was a little surprised by it. A little. I kind of put it off for a while. I don't know, it looked very kind of generic for me. It kind of was, but I don't think for necessarily any bad reasons. I'm glad I watched it, and I'm glad that we're going to get to talk about it because it does kind of play into a trope that I think is bold to say like that. It's harmful, but I do think it's something to be considered. It's the reason that I didn't end up liking the movie Lights Out, and it makes me feel a little complicated about the ending. They left it very open-ended as to not be definitive, and I'm going to choose to just believe that everything ended happily. But yeah, so I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. Once again, did enjoy it. I do think it was quite interesting. It plays into kind of a common folklore of the woman in black. I mean, that was a whole movie series as well. So we're kind of playing into that same idea, this figure of grief and just sorrow or a omen of tragedy to come. So it definitely plays more into that. So Woman in the Yard came out in 2025, directed by Jaume Colette Serra, written by Sam Stefanak, produced by Blumhouse. That's kind of where I got the idea that this was going to be a little more on the generic side. Blumhouse, sometimes they hit, and other times they don't. And it was distributed by Universal. So this one seemed to have kind of a large backing behind it. The budget was $12 million and box office $23.3 million. So, basic, quick little synopsis. A mysterious woman repeatedly appears in a family's front yard, often delivering chilling warnings and unsettling messages, leaving them to question her identity, motives, and the potential dangers she might pose.
You children are such darlings, ripe enough to eat.
Akui Okpakwasili is the woman in the yard. Danielle Deadweiler is Ramona. Peyton Jackson plays Taylor. Russell Hornsby is David. And Estella Kahia is Annie. So, diving on in, I feel like fans of, say, Babadook could get behind a movie like this. It very much kind of runs on the same premise of a grieving mother and her fight against depression and her own mental illnesses. But I think it does it in a much more believable way. You really feel for Ramona and you understand kind of the intention or motive behind some of the things that she does as a mother, as someone who's just grieving, and seeing how that either gels or doesn't gel with the kids. It's a very tense relationship.
Probably she just needs help. Maybe we should call the ambulance.
That's a good idea, Annie, baby.
Yeah, that is a really good idea, Annie. So we can't.
I think it's an interesting dynamic having the grieving mother who's grieving the loss of her partner, the loss of this life that she saw for them, and then the kids who are grieving their father, but also kind of grieving the loss of their mother as well because she's so drawn back. And we find out later that the kind of dynamic there changed a bit, that she wasn't too sure if she even wanted to continue on with the family thing. Diving on in, Ramona is a widowed mother who was disabled after a car accident that killed her husband, David. She cares for their two children, Taylor and Annie, but she is strict and emotionally distant from them. And we see that Taylor actually does a lot more of the kind of care for Annie. He cooks her breakfast, makes sure she's good to go and watched after for the most part. And then even then, when like he slips up every now and then, he's just a kid, you know, and he shouldn't be there to just look after his younger sibling. But the sometimes where he messes up or isn't there, she scolds him for it. And we see this very tense dynamic between mother and son, and how Taylor has kind of now taken on the fatherly role. Like, it's a little stereotypical, but like, that's what he does. He now feels like he's the one in the right to protect the family. A mysterious woman draped in black appears in the front yard, claiming that today's the day. After a brief and disturbing conversation with the woman,
Guess you were lucky. And he was not.
Who are you?
Ramona advises her children to stay away from her. Taylor is not convinced by his mother's story and tells her she needs to get rid of their unwanted guest or he will. This results in Ramona losing her temper and throwing a mug at their kitchen floor out of anger and sends Taylor to his room. He disobeys her, however, and pulls up a chair in front of the window overlooking the yard where the woman is still sitting. As the story progresses, we really see Ramona's kind of slip. Although, to be fair, we never saw the real grasp that she had on her motherhood. We never saw what their dynamic was like before. Only her relationship with her husband as she was rewatching the clips over and over that she had of them in bed. Not like that. So Ramona's grief in this movie is so heavy. And I feel like her disability, her leg being broken and her being on crutches is like a physical representation of that, you know? Like, she's having to carry so much, literally having to pry herself up and out of bed, help herself down the stairs. Her son does not help her at all. So you can tell that there's already pre-existing tension there. And it's just like the physical burden of having to carry everything. Ramona assures Taylor she will handle the situation and make the woman leave. The woman mysteriously moves closer to the house, which is noticed by the whole family. The woman uses shadow magic to attack their dog Charlie, who goes missing. You don't see anything. Warning, warning alert. You don't see anything pertaining to the dog, and I'll just spoil it now. The dog lives. Maybe. He comes back at the end, but I'm not too sure on like what's reality and what isn't at that point. Live in delusion with me though. The dog lived, and they're a happy family. The shadow magic stuff though is like cool, you know. You're kind of wondering like what really can this lady do? And then it gets really interesting. I also like how just the overall story of the woman comes about, and it's all because of Ramona. I mean, the woman does reference I was called here. So, she's called. Ramona experiences strange occurrences after the woman appears. After a power cut at their home that results in the family having to eat the food in the freezer and refrigerator, namely ice cream. Ramona notices Charlie is quiet and goes outside to look for him. She finds the chain used to tether Charlie to his doghouse is broken, and Charlie's collar is also missing. It was also like weirdly buried. Like, it was almost like a long time had passed that Charlie was even there. And who knows, maybe Charlie wasn't actually even there because they didn't even have dog food for him. So maybe it's all an illusion. Ramona tries to keep the kids away from the woman, who seems to know the true circumstances around David's death. Ramona convinces the kids that he was driving and caused the accident, but it was actually Ramona herself who was driving and crashed the car after an argument with David about her unhappiness with her life, marriage, and family. And that's like kind of a big like, oh. But it also makes sense. It doesn't feel like it just comes out of nowhere. We see the resentment that is there. It really just paints the full picture of Ramona's mental health and how she still continues to push for the sake of her family, even though that isn't necessarily what she wants to do. And I don't even think it's necessarily the issue of her family. she doesn't know where she wants to go. She doesn't feel like she belongs anywhere. It leads to, a much deeper conversation, but we see that kind of emotional instability. The woman then seems to be using a dark power to antagonize the family and seemingly take the kids away. Ramona surrenders herself to the woman and agrees to send the kids away for safety if she is going to die. Now, it gets a little rough from this point on because it kind of goes into those really dark negative thoughts, those intrusive thoughts and intrusive voices that you hear when you're at your darkest moment, And we see how the image of this spirit is also manipulating the family as well. Whenever one person sees it, it leads to something bad almost happening to another one. Like it's just manifesting these terrible things to happen. And it is all kind of a root cause of Ramona's mental illness as well. The woman is revealed to be a physical manifestation of Ramona's psyche and only appeared because Ramona was praying for her. When pressed what she prayed for, she claims it was strength to carry on after David's death, when in reality, she was praying for the strength to end her life because of her depression. The woman intends to help her commit suicide, convincing Ramona that the children are better off without her. Now, this is where I was like, pause, press the brakes. I understand what it is doing. I understand that it is just the manifestation of those dark, intrusive thoughts. But, ooh, did it make me feel icky, and ooh, did it make me think about just like, and maybe I'm reading into this too much. It made me think about the people watching it and like how it can kind of maybe validate some of those feelings. And I just want to steer away from that, Very much was my issue with Lights Out, that it was like very clearly a representation for mental illness. In the end, the only way for everyone else to live their lives peacefully was for the mentally ill person to K themselves. I don't like that. They did allow it to have a very open ending, so it's kind of like a choose your own adventure, I guess. But I feel like it should not have been as vague as it was. I will say, though, there is a scene, a very long scene, where you know what is to come. You are waiting for the gunshot. And then it never happens. And it's such a long, you're just waiting for it. But that's where it's like, well, does it come back to reality? Is it all a fantasy? Did the kids die in the crash too and she was just hallucinating it all? What's going on? After Ramona says goodbye to her kids, the woman leads her into the farm, assisting Ramona to point the rifle at herself. It's a very emotionally tense scene. Just going to be honest. I should have done a content warning thing. But yeah. They don't show anything, at least, but it does bring up those very tough conversations. The children return along with Charlie, and the woman disappears. They ask if the woman will come back, and Ramona assures them she will be ready. As they embrace, the camera pans into the house, revealing a painting Ramona had not finished that shows her and the woman's faces together, with Ramona's name spelled backward. So that painting bit at the end is what really makes me question if it's even actual reality, because the whole bit about her daughter with the R facing the right way is obviously an intentional mirroring, and maybe that's what initially called her, not just Ramona's prayers, but also the physical creation of that art maybe could have manifested it in some way. I don't know. But I did enjoy the movie. I do think it's good. I rewatched it right before filming this video. Again, though, I just think it's a very kind of tough conversation, and it's a tough thing to portray and have it still be a sensitive kind of thing or a sympathetic view of the struggle of those intrusive thoughts, suicidal ideation, in terms of compared to Lights Out, a movie that I really didn't like. with this kind of narrative, I like this one more. The open end, it allows me at least to then, live in my ignorance. So there's that. But I just wonder if it all actually ever even happened. I mean, I think once we find out like the truth of the crash and everything, that we kind of can't trust Ramona from that point on. But I don't know. I'm interested to know your thoughts, guys. I mean, the child actors are great in this. Annie is a really great kind of like grounding figure for Ramona, while Tyler, is more of like the brute force of it. Taylor, not Tyler, sorry. So, I highly recommend this movie. I think it's a much more digestible version kind of the Babadook. But I like that it's exploring that woman in black kind of. It makes me want to watch the movie Mama again. I really love that movie. Maybe we'll have to talk about that one in a little bit. But we got some things planned, so keep your eye out, guys. Thank you so much for tuning on in. As always, truly do appreciate y'all. Let me know your thoughts. Did you like the movie? Did you not like it? I mean, I feel like I say I like every movie. I kind of do. It's very hard for me to not like a movie. But also, it's very easy for me to not like one too. I'm picky. But yeah, I want to know your thoughts, guys. Like and subscribe, all of that. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.